If you pick up Beyblades again thinking it's the same game you remember, you are going to lose and you won't even know why. The game changed in one specific way that nobody really tells you up front, and it completely shifts how you have to play. If you're a returning player or parent looking to understand the game better, this video is exactly just for you. We're going to cover what changed, what to buy first, and what to skip so you don't waste money figuring it out the hard way. The original game was pretty simple. A heavier bay usually won contact, more spin meant better endurance, and you just picked the right type for the right matchup. Beyblade X on the other hand keeps that logic but adds one mechanic that changes everything. So this new mechanic is called the Extreme Dash. The stadium itself has raised gear teeth running around the outer rail, and when your bay hits that rail at the right angle, the bit on the bottom catches those teeth and produces a sudden speed burst. One rotation can completely flip the outcome of a match, and that was never a factor in the older versions. And what this means for you is that now launch technique now matters as much as which Beyblades you pick. Where you aim and how consistently you hit the rail is the real skill gap. And that brings us to parts, which is where most beginners end up wasting their money. Every Beyblade X is built from 3 parts. You have the blade, the ratchet, and the bit. You don't need to memorize every name right now, but knowing what each piece does will stop you from spending money on gear you don't need. Firstly, we have the blade, and that's the outer layer and makes all the direct contact with your opponent. The shape and metal placement determine how aggressive your bait acts, whether it charges hard into the other player or deflects hits to keep spinning. The ratchet sits underneath the blade and controls your height, which directly affects how stable you are and how likely you are to burst during a collision. Having a lower height ratchet makes it harder for an opponent to knock your parts loose. You don't really need to overthink the numbers, but just know that the height shifts your center of gravity and your burst resistance. And finally we have the bit, and it's the small tip at the bottom that touches the stadium floor. It controls how your bay grips the gear teeth on the outer rail to trigger an extreme dash, and it decides what type of bay you are running. Personally, I feel like this one part has the biggest impact on your movement pattern, which is why it tends to be the most confusing piece for beginners. But trust me, once you understand how these parts work together, the 4 types of bays will make a lot more sense. Firstly, we have attack type bays. Attack types move toward the outer edges to hunt for high speed knockouts. Personally, I feel like the attack type Beyblades are the most exciting to watch, but the hardest to master because a small mistake in your launch angle will get punished immediately. Next up, we have defense types, so these guys stay near the center and they absorb hits. I feel like these guys are the most forgiving to play, which makes them a pretty solid starting point if you want to learn the mechanics of Beyblade X without losing any match. Next up, we've got stamina types, so these guys focus on spinning as long as possible to outlast their opponent. And right now, stamina is the strongest type in the competitive meta in my own opinion, so expect to see a lot of these at local events. And finally, we have balance types, the jack of all trades, master of none. They try to do a little bit of everything without specializing into anything at all. Not really the best at any single task, but they hold up across different matchups while you're still figuring out your style. Overall, the basic logic is a triangle. Attack beats stamina, stamina beats defense, defense beats attack, and then you have balance in the middle that can kind of adapt to any between the 3. And once that clicks, you stop picking gear randomly and start choosing parts with a reason. So now let's look at Beyblades that are actually worth your money. Choosing what to buy isn't about hunting for the best Beyblade. It's a price to performance problem. You want the most competitive parts for the lowest possible cost while you are still on the learning curve. I feel like the most efficient entry point right now is a deck set. For instance, the Shark Scale deck set usually costs between $44 to $50 depending from where you are. Hey guys, this is only Drans from the future. I just want to say that during the making of this video, I was unaware of the increase in price in the Shark Scale deck set. As you can see, it's worth $100 Australian on Amazon. While there are more cheaper and affordable sets out there, I would still recommend this deck set as well, given the fact that Shark Scale is a very good Beyblade. You also get access to the 170 ratchet and the level bit as well, so all in all, you are getting some good value out of this set. I apologize for the confusion, and yeah, let's get back to the video. If you are just starting out though, just stick with what is accessible to you and competitive at your local level before chasing imports. The biggest mistake beginners make is buying 4 or 5 setups to cover every matchup. And what happens is they spend a month learning nothing because they can't tell if a loss came from their technique or their parts. I personally feel like switching gear constantly hides your own mistakes behind the hardware. Stick to one combo and those mistakes get exposed. And that is the only way you can fix them. Because the most efficient part is simple. You pick one reliable combo, commit to it for 30 days and track your results. So everything that we just covered The parts, the types, the combos, all of it is just a multiplier, because your base stat is always launch consistency, and if your launch is off, none of that gear knowledge is going to help you win. There are 2 launches to focus in on your first month. Personally, the first one is the power launch, which is a standard flat rip where you pull super hard and super straight to trigger the extreme dash as fast as you can. Next is a little bit more technical, and it's called the sliding shot, and it kind of requires you to tilt the launcher slightly to guide the path through the stadium. These 2 produce completely different outcomes, and understanding how they work puts you ahead of most people who just open up the box. I recommend sticking with just 1 combo and 1 launch time for 2 full weeks before changing anything. The learning curve in Beyblade X is real, and it's pretty short if you're getting regular matches in. Since you've already made it this far, you already have a better read on the meta than most beginners do on day 1. If you want to look at the most cost-effective way to grow your collection, check out my next video where I break down the value for money between Hasbro and Takara Tomy. Subscribe if this has helped you understand the learning curve, and make sure to track down your own results so you can let me know what you find.